It's taken months of planning, construction and testing to get the snow sailor just right.
He's going to be pushed to his absolute limit.
I was making some really bad decisions and continue to do that. A lot of things I'm not proud of that happened in those previous years, but that kind of epitomized who I was. I made this decision that I'm going to Antarctica. I went, well, yeah, okay, so how am I going to get on a ship and go on a cruise? Am I going to get on an aeroplane that just flies across the top of the country? Am I going to try and walk there, ski there, ride there, drive there? All of this has been done. Absolutely everything of this has been done already. The only thing that hasn't been done that I could find was somebody who had actually snow sailed. And off I went and sketched out what to me was the most unbelievably great looking craft. But then I worked out that what I had drawn was just way too complicated. It looked like something out of a James Bond movie, and it was never going to work. So I went back to the drawing board and I minimalized everything that I did. My father was ill, and on a number of occasions I had to go back to Cape Town to see my dad. And in 2013, I went back to see him on his birthday. And I spent a week in Cape Town with Mum and Dad. But I had done this rendering. It was no longer a drawing, it was now a rendering. I was lying on the bed with my dad talking to him, and I said to him, I want to show you something. I'm thinking of going to do this, and I've come up with this design, and it's completely different, and no one's ever done anything like this in the world before, and I have registered the design, and I am going to build it, and I think I'm going to go try and do this. A couple of his friends came in to say hi. It was on his birthday, and they came to say hi, and every time one of them came in and said to me, show them what you've done, show them what you've done. I said to him, so what do you think? What do you think of this? And he said to me that I need to do this because it is something that I am so passionate about and something that I seem to be so driven about. Yeah, I was able to spend his last birthday with him. And then it was like, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks later, I got the phone call saying, Dad's passed away. And I got on the plane to fly home. And on that flight, I remember that the winds were so strong that the trip from Johannesburg to Sydney, obviously it's never a straight line. The aircraft always flies the curvature of the earth. And the winds were so strong that we had to go that far down south that I have pictures of the east coast of Antarctica that we flew down and past. And I went, yeah, this is something that's real. You've got to make this happen. And I then went back and I was sitting down and I came up with this idea that not only am I going to go to Antarctica and be the first person to ever snow sail in Antarctica, but I'm going to go to Antarctica to raise much needed funds for the Leukemia Foundation. It was a massive catalyst to taking the next step.
So we built this machine, and you can see from the machine, it is so over-engineered. We went to Falls Creek to go and test the thing. Yeah, it worked, but it was so big and so cumbersome I couldn't pull it. And I went, this is not going to happen. We started cutting it down and we started making some changes along the way. And we took this beast and we tried to minimize the thing.
You need to be certified that you have completed a glacier training course. Otherwise, we can't take you. And within 48 hours, never the minister of last minute, but within 48 hours, I found myself in Christchurch, jumping in a hire car, heading towards Mount Cook. And I arrived at Mount Cook thinking I'll just ease into this. Well, I got there and my guide said, "Where's your backpack?" And I went, "In the car." "Right, need to see it." And within an hour, I was in a chopper and heading up onto Nuns Vale to do a 4-day glacier training course.
Charles Werb will be the first person ever to snow sail in Antarctica. His goal, a return voyage to the South Pole, a round trip pushing past 3,000 kilometres.
I want to try and get to the pole. If conditions allow, on an average of 300 kilometres a day, I should do it within 15 to 20 days.
In funds for the Leukemia Foundation in honour of his dad.
Just 9 months ago, his solar-powered snow sail was being built here in sunny Brisbane. In 2 weeks' time, it'll be gliding over Antarctic ice. That was the mission. Like everything else, I didn't give myself enough time. The weather was terrible. Conditions weren't conducive to attempting it. I got to Cape Town and we were delayed for 6 days because of storms, so they had to wait till they cleared the runway before the Russian Ilyushin could fly us into the base. By the time I got to the base, the wind had dropped. There was no wind. Antarctica with no wind. But we made that work. And eventually I ended up riding along the coast of Antarctica, and I did 1,000 kilometers and I raised $10,000 for the Leukemia Foundation. But it was the first time that I'd really put myself out there. The goal was to reach the South Pole. But time and bad weather worked against them. We went out sailing, and within an hour of being in that environment, I broke my snow sailor.
Everything okay, Charlie? Okay.
We'd heard about the conditions, but we didn't realise how severe those conditions were. He endured 100-kilometre winds and minus 20-degree temperatures. But when the sun was shining and the vehicle fixed, they sailed. Got back to Brisbane and went into an incredibly dark space for a while. It's like you've done something and like you go, shit, why do I have to go and work tomorrow? Like I've done, but you have to. You just keep fighting through all the time. And I had an opportunity present itself to me. Probably 3-4 months after Antarctica, I was doing some work with one of the Pacific Island Tourism Commissions, and they said to me, "Why don't you go to the Solomon Islands and do something that's never been done before? Why don't we do a self-sufficient stand-up paddleboard adventure around Gelesulu Island, 164 nautical miles. Well, let's start training for that." And I needed that more than they needed me. They didn't realize it at the time. But what I needed to be able to take myself out of this dark place and give myself a goal. Because I kind of realized that what I'd done was good, but it wasn't great. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but I'd still achieved. Now I needed something else to keep myself going and to motivate myself to possibly keep this thing going
and to keep the journey, my own personal journey going. And we landed up in the Solomon Islands, paddling around the biggest island just off Honiara. And that was an amazing journey, and that was something that was achieved from start to finish. It wasn't a massive expedition to put on because it was really easy and minimal. I mean, it's beautiful weather, so it was a pair of board shorts, basically. Board shorts and some food. It was great fun though, wonderful expedition. Came back from that, and that was almost like reinvigorating me, which was terrific. It was a really, really good time to go the next level, because 4 months after that, I met Margot, who is now my wife.
I was right on the other side of town for a completely different reason than from meeting Werbs. And I was actually walking back to my car, and Werbs and Mr. Mawson were there. Of course, Werbs comes with a very lovely little blonde Labrador called Mr. Mawson. And I stopped to talk to Mr. Mawson, say hello to the Labrador. And so we started chatting, and of course, Werbs being Werbs, said we should have a drink. And we did. So, yes, and it started from there, really. So I actually fell in love. The story is I actually fell in love with Mr. Mawson. And then Mr. Mawson said to me, I've got Werbs. He comes with me, I went, oh, okay, well, we'll see what happens.
Margot, I think, is one of the few people that gets me. I mean, she's an academic who spent 6 years of her life as a ski bum.
Nice.
Yeah. So totally understands this thing about being a little bit different and a little bit out there.
In fact, if you decide to design a snow sailer and sail to the South Pole, that's not something you do in Brisbane or Australia, so that's a really big project to take on, because it's not like he was living in the mountains or living near icy lakes or living in Russia or anywhere that he could do that easily. It was a whole complex layer of, well, if this is what I want to do, there's all this bunch of other stuff that goes with it that makes that even more difficult than if you were deciding to do that in a completely different sort of environment.
Probably the most important part was that next adventure, which is incredible, because here I am, I've just met Margot, and now I'm going off to Russia, to the city of Tolyatti, to race version 3, which is, when you look at it, it's a frame, it's got a PVC cover to help protect myself, and I'm going to compete at the World Ice Snow Sailing Championships. It's called WISA. Here we are. I'm going to compete with this thing against guys using kites and guys using windsurfing sails and using boards and using skis, and it's a whole new world. And I'm going to go and play with my peers.
So, here I am, Tolyatti, finally. We've got snow. And got a bit of wind, which is awesome. Ground conditions, really good and hard. And a little bit of a run, and we'll go and give it a go again. And my best friend here is going to do some filming of me. So, let's go.
And this bloke walks in, and he's a foot taller than me. He's a foot wider than me. And he shakes my hand, and his hand comes up to about here, and he says, "Hi, my name's Max. I'm your fixer. You pay for me 500 rubles a day. You have no problem." So, Max, great to meet you. So this is where the fixer comes into being. I want to race. Conditions, it's frozen overnight. This thing needs 10 knots of wind with the basics that I've got. I can't ride at 6 knots. I'm like the guy that's not going to be racing. I'm sad.
Max. Hello, Charles. Max, I've got a problem.
Small problem that I just need to tighten.
I come now, what is your problem? He arrives, I said to him, Max, I tell you what I need. I've got a 5.5 meter sail. I need a 7 meter sail minimum. Do you think we can find someone, any other competitors who would lend me a sail? Not a problem. Half an hour later, Max comes, introduces me to a guy. He says, this guy's going to lend you a sail. Oh, will he lend me a mast as well? Because now I need a new mast. Not a problem. New mast to play with. I'm rigging the thing, put it all together, attach the boom. The boom is that short. What am I going to do? Max, I've got a problem. Not a problem, I'll be there. Max arrives. Max, I need a piece of metal that long. And I need an eye bolt put in one end, and I need a screw and a nut on the other. It needs to fit into there, and if we can get that piece, I can create a boom. No problem. 20 minutes later, Max arrives with a piece of metal that long, fits into that hole, has one screw there, and an eye bolt that he had taken off the other one and put in. Where'd you get the metal from? Don't worry about it, Charles. And at the end of the day, I'd finished racing. I didn't do well at all. I came last everywhere, but I just kept going because it was light winds, it was bigger. And you finish, you've got to push everybody has to push their gear back up to the clubhouse. And at the clubhouse, there are all these flags of all the competing nations sitting in front of the clubhouse. And I'm looking at the flags. Shit, there's one that's that much shorter than all the others. Max, he says to me, it's not your problem. My job is to put the flags up and down every day. No one will ask why that one's shorter. And that's where Max got the piece of metal for me to keep sailing with. As incredible as it is, that's why you go to Russia, you need a fixer. And the video that we have of Russia proved the concept about what we wanted to do. And that was the start of what we've ended up building. So I now came home from Russia going, how cool is this? I'm totally reinvigorated. I know this thing will work. Don't know where it's going to take me, but I'm sure I can go and play around the world with it. And so we went into the phase of building and using 3D cutters to create the base, which we then built a mold of. We used blow molding to create the canopy to prove that it works, not just as a concept, but it works as a snow sailor. And how best to do that as to just go back and race it with your peers on ice lakes again. So the World Championships was supposed to be in Estonia in 2020. And with global warming, that sea didn't freeze that year. So they moved the World Championships. We drove onto the ferry with this van that we'd rented, and we had to drive way up into the Arctic Circle in Finland.
Here we are at, it's day 3 at the Wizard Championships in Lestijärvi in Finland. It's an awesome day. Hopefully we'll get some wind, but just to give you guys an overview, the whole area has been taken over in this central part of Finland. We rode in, we got up to around about 31, 32, 33 kilometers an hour, which proves that the beast works in all conditions. The ground conditions today are brilliant by comparison to what we'd had previously, where you just saw water and sludge.
I'd managed to sail, and we'd had a huge amount of fun doing it. It worked. And I thought there'll be lots more opportunities to play with this thing, and we'll find some new expeditions and new places to visit and new places to go to. But of course, the next 2 years were just absolutely nothing. But it started a new phase because I'd heard about the Red Dot Award.
which is a design award for concept. And I entered the Swish Snow Sailor into the Red Dot Awards. So remember, the very first one, kick-ass cockpit, all of these pods all over it, weighing a ton. Second one, stripping the pods off, stripping the cockpit off, going very basic. Version 3 was, let's go to Russia with this frame. And to me, that was the turning point. The Russian adventure was the total turning point. And so the Red Dot Award to me was, I didn't realize how significant it was to start with, to be honest. I entered thinking that it would be cool to win. We were in the middle of COVID and the doorbell rang. Doorbells didn't ring during COVID because people didn't come to your front door. We were in lockdown, and in Australia, as you know, the lockdowns were intense. And the doorbell rang, and I opened the door, and there was a gentleman. There's a landing and there's a gate, and there's a gentleman on the other side of the gate who said, I have a letter for you. And he just dropped it on the other side. It was a letter from DHL. And so it said, Red Dot. So I opened it up, and inside there was a folder. And they don't tell you this. They don't message you in an email. They do it old school. There was a letter informing me that the Swish Snow Sailor had won a design award. I decided that I'm going to start cycling because we were allowed to do 10 kilometers from your home. You could exercise in that radius. And I worked out, 10-kilometer ride that goes out that way, comes back. I could go 10 that way, so I could start. And so I started cycling, and I was absolutely loving it. I was riding that same path, and I landed up in the creek. I had no recollection of falling off my bike and landing in the creek. I thought I must have hit something and went down. I'd had episodes prior to that where I had chest pain, which I thought was indigestion. July 2020, really bad day at work. We had this thing about making sure we took the dogs for a walk every day, and the dogs are very much part of our lives. And I went out there and I did a time trial, 20 kilometers, personal best. Got home. Margaret said, you don't look that good. I said, I feel like crap. I really feel bad. I said, Margs, let's take the dogs for a walk. And I bent down to leash one of the dogs, and I just felt this pain in my chest. And I went, oh, that's not right. Margaret was on the phone. I went to the bedroom to lie down, and I just, it was like bricks, ton of bricks on my chest. And I explained this to Margot when she came back in, and she asked me some questions, and I answered no to everything.
I said, I think we should go to the doctor regardless.
And for the first time in my life, there was no argument. We went to the hospital.
Even in the hospital, in the emergency department, I do remember when we walked in, there was a massively long queue. I left him at the front door, went and parked, came back, and by that time he'd told the girl he had chest pain. Well, with that, it was like everyone just stood aside, and he was ushered through onto a bed. And I think there was a moment there where I went, oh, this is a little bit more serious than I thought.
And honestly, they put this pill under my tongue, and the pain started going away, and that's when I went, fuck. This is not indigestion. The cardiologist walked in. And she looked at me and she went, you're not going home. She said, you've had a heart attack. I went, you're kidding me. No. I don't. Why? I don't smoke. Occasional beer.
And it was at that time that I kind of realized my own mortality. I stopped. I looked at Margot and I started crying.
I found that there was a blockage in my left ascending, and he said to me, well, you know, you need to have the stent done. And I said, okay, well, when will that happen? When do I have to come back for that? He goes, no, we'll do it right now. Yeah, put the stent up, and unbelievable, you know, it's like, it's finished in the space of no time. Margot comes to visit me, and I'm not in my ICU ward, I'm downstairs, and she doesn't panic. It's like, oh yeah, well, they're obviously doing something, and there we are, procedure done. Any male or female, if you get chest pains, please go to the doctor. Don't go to Dr. Google. Like, I should have been at the doctor in January.
But I also remember going to the cardiologist for a checkup about 2 or 3 months later. I think Werbs had said, can I go venturing again or something like that? And the cardiologist said, yeah, mate, you can do anything you want to do. Something along those sorts of lines. And I went, right, now I need to interrupt, because you can't just say that to Werbs. You can't say it's a blank canvas, just go for it. You have to give him some guidelines around, you know, the levels of pressure he can put his body under, but it will tolerate over time. So give him a scale. You know, if you just say, mate, then in a week he's going to be doing a 100K cycle race, you know. So you need to give him some parameters. You can't just say, yeah, mate, it's all good, right? Whatever you like.
I got into the shed with my tools, and I reworked it to what you have here, which has got the engine on the back. It's got the new suspension on it. It's got all the whistles, all the bells. It's got all the toys on the inside. I decided I'm going to go to Norway. And Norway has the Hardangervidda Plateau, which is the biggest plateau in Europe. From one side to the other, it's almost like 70 or 80 kilometers. But it's all lakes, so it's reasonably flat, but it steps down and then obviously steps back up. I was committed to this. I planned this expedition down to the minute. We were working with weather forecasters on the perfect window, and they found the perfect 7 days for me. We arrived in Oslo and went to pick up the van and drove around to the freight company and handed them an airway bill to be told that it hadn't been put on the plane. Really, guys, I've got 7 days. I have a wind window. This is when it's happening. Saturday, we hung around Oslo. Sunday, we hung around Oslo. Got a confirmation on Sunday that it was on the plane. Monday morning, out of the hotel, in the van, to the freight company. And as this thing's being driven out on a forklift, I'm going, oh my God, there's something wrong. That lifted the frame and broken the frame that the motor sits on. Been torn on the bottom, so I'd be a bit worried there, but there's also this bracket has been hit with something. It doesn't matter that I said do not lift here. Someone seems to have lifted it and popped it somewhere along the way. Here I have a frame that's not broken, it's shattered. I'm not going to get this let me down. We're going to drive up to Hardanger, we're going to work out a way, and we're going to weld. We're going to weld this thing, we're going to drill, we're going to go to the hardware store, we're just going to do what we need to do to get this thing to work.
So this is the entry to the plateau, and I think the first stake comes up on the right-hand side. But we've got a fair bit of work to do to recce this out over the next few hours and work out if what I want to try and do is actually possible.
And I'm trying to weld something in the cold. Settings don't go right, materials are not right, the weld's not working. 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. Think about it. You go away, I came back, had a different idea, and instead of trying, rebuild this frame and weld it. I just put a couple of holes in the back of the damn thing with some kick-ass screws and bolts like this and bolted it on, and off we went. Found the place we were going to go to, undid everything, packed it all together, and have a look at the story. The conditions on the ground changed dramatically. You can actually see how it's changing in front of you, how the whole place is closing down. And here I am, déjà vu.
If you come around this way a little bit, I cannot see where I have to go.
And so I then changed my emphasis from trying to snow sail and set a record for 24 hours to one of, let me show you that my dream is still alive, that the concept of powering the snow sailor will work. It can help it up over the top, it can help it down, and when the wind drops off, it can still power you through. And let's get that on film, and let's show people the story of don't ever fucking give up. Whatever hurdle is thrown in front of you, think about it, work through it, and you'll fix it. If you are like in your own mind convinced that you can do this, you can make this work. And that's where I get to this stage of sitting in the snow sailor after 4.5 hours of sailing, being smashed with 15, 16 centimeters of powder, snowflakes that are like that drop being smashing on the cockpit, going, how the hell did I get here?
Okay, well, that's been a tough 3 hours. Absolutely exhausted. I'm cold. Hands are frozen. The snow is coming in. The wind's picking up. It's getting really, really, really closed out there. And I'm starving. I'm absolutely starving. And on top of that, it's been a battle getting this all together and to happen today. So here we have the sail, and look there's my wife Margot, and there's my food in my thermos bag. I am so hungry, I can't wait. So yeah, just knackered, to tell you the truth. It's been really, really tough, and so much to still go through and so much to still do, and really worried about the weather.
Because I come to the realization that I'm done. I am finished.
I don't think he will ever stop goal setting or changing risks. It just may be that he sets it up so other people actually take the physical kind of risk and the goal setting, that he might still thrive on the sort of adventure, but more from the sidelines. So I think there's certainly a point where he's gone, right, I'm done for me doing my bit. My job now is to get others to do stuff too.
Adrian, hi, good morning. How are you?
Charles, very well. Nice to see you. It's been too long, as always.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit like that. But then again, you know, it's a lot less time since we had our last chat.
Yes.
Our fireside in Melbourne.
Yes, very true. We have to nab these moments when we can.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm calling you from Bournemouth, and I'm with Johan, the filmmaker for the documentary The Chase.
Yes.
As you know, I've just completed levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 training for the Clip Around the World, which I told you I was going to compete in the Southern Ocean Legs. And I've had this epiphany, believe it or not. Do you remember when we spoke about the documentary, and when we were sitting in the restaurant in Melbourne, I said to you that I'm done, I'm finished. I have no desire to go back and expedition ever again.
Yes, I do recall that. Where are you heading?
What if I said to you, I've done a complete 180?
Right.
You probably go...
Wouldn't surprise me, knowing the bit that I did about you.
I was about to say that. You'd probably say no surprise. Let me run this by you. What do you think about going back to Antarctica in 2020 for December, 2 snow sailors, solar and wind powered, to try and cover the distance from the South Pole to Union Glacier in 48 hours.
Wow. That's very cool. Very ambitious.
Yes.
You know, 2 words that I've used before with you. So, wow, that sounds very exciting.
Are you in?
Well, how can I say anything but yes? I tell my students this: when in doubt, say yes, and then work it out. Life's too short to say no. So, let's do it.
Does love have an open door? Welcome, stranger. Give us your tired and poor. All those in the old dream.